I'm Dr. Laverne Mountney. I'm a psychiatrist at the Life Mental Health Unit at Life Riverfield Lodge. So the word bipolar disorder describes the condition for us. It is the two poles, the depressive pole with a low and the manic pole with a high, so bipolar. There's a whole spectrum of what the low and what the high could be, and based on that spectrum is where you're going to then have either a bipolar 1 or a bipolar 2. Bipolar disorder does not have a specific cause. It has a multimodal approach, it has a genetic background, and then certain external triggers can make the condition more prevalent. Life traumatic event, specific time in your life where it is more prevalent, in the early 20s, late teens, and then also substance abuse. Substance abuse is frequently a trigger for the exposure of bipolar. It doesn't mean that the substance causes the bipolar, but it means that it exposes an underlying condition. It's not specific demographics that you would find bipolar disorder in. It's not got to do with how much money you have or what work you do or what the color of your skin is. Bipolar disorder comes across the board in all demographics and in the same percentages in all demographics. It is slightly more prominent in females than males. Most mood disorders are more prominent in females than males. Bipolar disorder has a very strong genetic component, and we do see it run in families. We don't know the specific genes that is affected when somebody has bipolar. It is a multi-gene illness, and there is also neurochemical pathways that are involved when we look at what goes wrong in the brain. So the genetics of bipolar is not clear. It doesn't have to be in every family member. If you have it, if your dad has it, it's not going to say that you have it, or if your uncle or aunt have it, it's not direct lines. I think there is certainly this misconception that mood swings is bipolar disorder, and that somebody would go around and saying, you are so bipolar, just don't do that, or just pull yourself together. Bipolar mood disorder is a serious mental illness that is complicated to treat because I think most people also, when they do present for treatment, don't present when they're in the high or in the manic phase. So we see people mostly present for treatment when they're in the depressed phase, and that actually makes it more complicated to see, is there a bipolar condition here? To make the diagnosis of bipolar disorder is quite a complicated thing, and unfortunately there is no blood test to be done, there's no scan to be done, there's no special investigation to be done to diagnose somebody with bipolar. It is a diagnosis by exclusion, and there is certain tests that we do, but to exclude other conditions that could mimic bipolar. In order to make the diagnosis, we actually look at a set of criteria that has been agreed on internationally of what this diagnosis would mean. And it's a clinical interview, so it's an interview with an individual and looking at their patterns, looking at their lifestyle, looking at collateral information from their family and their employer, and looking at patterns over a lifetime, not just a single episode. It is certainly so that depression or depressive symptoms is part of the bipolar spectrum, and frequently patients present in a depressive episode to their doctor. And if the history is not clear, or even if the patient hasn't had a previous episode of a mania, a patient can be treated for depression and still have bipolar disorder. And when there is just depressive symptoms present and the person is not responding to an antidepressant, the doctor has to review the diagnosis and possibly look at a bipolar condition. There's definitely a misconception that bipolar disorder is something that is not treatable and that you would be disabled for the rest of your life. The challenge with bipolar disorder is that it is a chronic illness. So once you're on medication, you have to stay on medication. And as with any other chronic illness, hypertension or diabetes, it is important that your medication is monitored over time. So unfortunately, bipolar disorder cannot be cured, but it can certainly be controlled, and you can be 100% stable if you are on the right medication. The important thing would be to find a medication that would be suitable for that individual. And therefore, 5 different people can be on 5 different medication combinations and still have a bipolar diagnosis. Friends and family of people with bipolar disorder can play a very important role in supporting an individual with this condition. I think the first thing is not to judge, not to stigmatize, and to inform yourself as much as you can regarding the condition. People that have the best capacity to break down the stigma is the individuals with bipolar themselves. For you to talk about your illness. If you have bipolar, you don't have to go and stand on a soapbox and tell the whole world, but also don't hide it and don't think that you're a lesser citizen because you have this illness. Be prepared to share it with your employer, be prepared to share it with your family, because that can be a meaningful part of your support system then.